Coach Eugene. How are you, sir? A pleasure.
Here you go. I come.
Wow. Bearing gifts?
Official team t-shirt.
Oh my God. Am I officially a member of the squad?
You are officially a member of the squad.
This is amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And I was saying, I feel like I'm almost like not worthy of breathing in the same oxygen as you. You're such a brilliant mind. I have so much respect for you. Thank you for making the trek from that palatial estate that you guys are in New Jersey. Looks quite nice.
We are in a place that reminds us of home, to be honest. So yeah, we're.
That's the kind of house you're living in back home.
We're definitely not the kind of house, but it's the kind of surroundings we're living in.
Right, the trees and everything, the forest. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Great to have you and the whole squad here. It's a New Zealand takeover. So much that I want to talk to you about, and it's good. No bad Wi-Fi this time. I can hear you perfect.
It's a problem.
Wow, when you have a situation like this, and you guys tend to roll deep, where it's like at least 3 or 4 of you. In this particular case, it's 4 fighters on the card. As a coach, is that better for you, or would you prefer it just be in a perfect world? Obviously, it's hard with the travel, but in a perfect world, would it be better if it was like 1 per card?
Something special gets created when you have 4 guys on a card, and I'm not sure how many teams can attest to that, but when you have 4 guys all aiming for the same date, there's definitely some magic that happens behind the scenes in the gym. It's tough. It's very tough. It's very tough dealing with 4 people and you know and all the accompaniments that come with 4 people fighting. But I would take that any day because of that special kind of atmosphere that gets created in the gym leading up to something like this.
So at that house, how many guys are staying there? Like how many members of the team are actually there?
There's got to be between 25 and 30 at least.
And everyone's playing a part. Everyone has a role. It's either training partners, fighters.
I mean, we have a rule when we go away that there's no one's just idly there for the sake of being there. Everybody has to have a purpose and a reason for being there. Either they're a training partner, a physio, a coach, a psychologist, or whatever. They've all got a very important role to play. And we have extended members of the team, but they're not allowed in the house. That don't necessarily have anything to do with like the camp.
Okay.
They stay outside. So that's that's soldiers only in the house staying with us, and that's how we like to keep it.
At any point, do you allow yourself to look around and say, like, look what we built. Look at us, this small gym from New Zealand, Madison Square Garden. Look at this army that is here. We're the top of the bill. We're the middle of the bill. Like, we're everywhere. Are you allowing yourself to smell the flowers at all here? Because this is truly remarkable, the run that you guys are on.
To be honest, Ariel, interesting you mentioned that, but I have had a moment where I looked around and I was like, man, this is from where we came from to here, to have 30 guys out there in this 16-room mansion, marble mansion with a tennis court and a pool, and all the guys training together and traveling together and coordinating dinner, breakfast, lunch, and just everybody pulling together. From me staying in a $6 a night hotel in the middle of China with just me and Israel, it does blow my mind sometimes.
So this is a really special treat because I love talking to you and I really appreciate what you've done and built, but also because I know you haven't done a lot of media leading up to this fight. And in fact, that is true for the whole team. I do love the relationship that you have with a gentleman. Correct me, I don't know his name. Tony from Combat TV. And I love this because clearly this is an older gentleman who has been around the team for a long time, but you are very gracious with your time with him and you allow everyone to speak to him, but he's a local guy, right? So you have it just goes to show you haven't forgotten your roots. You haven't forgotten about the guys who were covering you when you were sleeping in a $6 a night, hotel. And so I watched all of these interviews, and one in particular with you and him was fascinating to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to ask Eugene some questions about this because you had an intensity to yourself in that interview. And you talked about the complacency within the team, and you said at the top of the team, and you really had to, lay down some new ground rules. You also talked about not being friends with, like, I'm not here to be your friend at the gym. Outside, we could be friends, but here you may not like certain things that I have to say. We're not in the feelings business. And so can I ask about the genesis of all of this? Where did this come from where you felt like you had to kind of put your foot down?
Yeah, look, we unanimously as coaches, we got together, throughout this camp, and there was a stage in this camp, it was just before the halfway point, where we just felt the boys were, by all means, performing at a very, very high level, but we felt but that's just, sometimes it's just not good enough. Sometimes to come into the gym and do what you've always been doing and then walk out of there again being satisfied with your work is just sometimes not enough. And we felt that although they were coming in and they were training really well, they weren't coming in to and being responsible for excelling in their performance. We wanted them to excel. We wanted to separate themselves from the rest of the guys. Don't matter if it's a young guy coming up who's full of energy and full of strength. It don't matter who they were facing. We just wanted them to perform at the gym at a new level. We wanted them to find a new level, and we wanted them to have that mindset. And bear in mind, they're already performing at a very high level in the gym, but we wanted them to come in and be the best in the gym that day, every day, and that's what we wanted. And we weren't getting that. We weren't able to get that out of them early in this camp. And so as coaches, we chose to not be satisfied with that and not accept that, and not, there's no reason for us to be happy if you're not performing at the highest level that we think you can. And so the early camp was tough. Like, I had to show a side of me that I don't often show. I had to be, I had to be tough. I had to be mean. I had to, if the sparring went for an hour and we weren't satisfied, then I made them go for another hour.
Wow.
If we did 8 5-minute rounds, then we did another 5 or 6 on top of that if we weren't happy. I doubled it sometimes.
Wow.
And
you've never had to do this?
Never had to do it. We just felt that there was just a little bit of complacency, and by a little bit, I'm talking about a little bit, but that means everything at this level.
Yeah.
That little 1 or 2%. We wanted them to come and we wanted to see them perform day in and day out. Not just perform one day of the week well, and the rest of the days you've just got us coaches, just scratching our heads. So, I had to show a side of myself that I don't often show. But I also had to let them know that, you might be moping around the gym because the coaches aren't happy, but we don't care. You're not our child, we're here for a specific purpose, and that's to make you win and to get you to perform. So you can be as angry and you can mope around the gym as much as you want, but quite frankly, it has no emotional effect on us. We're here to do a particular job. And the coaches just felt that we had to draw a line in this camp and let them know that our job is very specific. We're here to make you perform to your utmost so that we can win. And we drew that line nice and early, and it fractured the camp, but in the end, we got the desired result.
When you say fracture the camp, what do you mean by that?
Well, fractured the camp like, the boys, they
weren't happy?
They weren't happy. They didn't like the way that
Did they express that to you, or was it more the body language?
No, it was just, you could just tell.
Right.
But also, we're unemotional about that. If you're not happy, then that's your fault, because you're not performing to the utmost of your ability, to the ability that we think you can perform. That's your fault. That's not our fault. We're doing everything that we can, because that's what we do as coaches. We put everything into these guys. They have to do their part, and they have to come into the gym and not perform at 98%, 95%. They have to perform at 100 every time. That's the expectation, and we push that to its utmost limit, and we got the desired result. Fractured the team for a bit, momentarily, but now we've brought the team back together, and we're better because of it.
Were you worried that you might lose members of the team? Not physically, but you say fractured, like someone would be like, what the hell with this? I don't need to do this.
That'll never happen. Like the team, I didn't even fathom that, and none of the boys would fathom that. What I meant was, like, there were times when they probably disagreed with what we're doing, and they didn't like our decisions, and they felt that maybe we were pushing them too hard. But they respectfully would never, how they responded was how we wanted them to respond. They lifted their game, and they came in, and they came in through the doors into those 4 walls with the right mentality. And so, in the end, we came to a happy place.
And just curious, not wanting you to name names, but there are 4 members of your team fighting on this card. Did you feel like this was the case with the whole lot of them? Because, 4 different personalities, 4 different people. Did you feel like everyone needed a bit of a kick in the behind?
We felt that everyone needed a kick in behind. And then as we gave these people a kick in behind, they slowly responded.
Got it.
Dan responded first and made some immediate adjustments and found that extra push that we needed. Carlos responded next. Brad responded a couple weeks after that, and the last to respond was Israel. And that's probably got to do with just a bit of his stubbornness and the fact that maybe it takes him a little bit longer to understand what exactly is going on.
He's also the king right now, right? He's the man. He's the champ.
He's the king to you, but he's not the king to me.
I get that.
He's just another... We just call him just another piece of shit like the rest of us.
Do you find that he is more stubborn as he continues to get bigger and more famous and more successful?
Don't get me wrong. I don't mean like stubborn as in like a stubborn person.
No, but...
Stubborn as in like he needed us to push on him that we didn't think he was performing. And he sometimes has a contrary view. But most of the time, he is wrong and we are right.
Is this potentially a byproduct of just the fight game success, right? I always talk about this with so many people, and the fans roll their eyes at times, but the Marvin Hagler line of, it's hard to wake up at 5 a.m. when you're waking up in satin sheets. Do you feel like this has played, your guys are now heroes in New Zealand and none bigger than Israel because he's had the most success, he's been there the longest. Do you feel like this is a byproduct of any of that?
This is not a byproduct of that per se. This is a byproduct of having done this so many times now over so many years that you get into a cruise mode. You don't realize you're in that cruise mode. You think you're giving your best effort, but the coaches are thinking something else. And the coaches are the best people to determine what mode you're in because you can't always get outside the box and look at yourself. So it's not a product of that. We'll never fall subject to what you're talking about. Like, we just, the environment's too strong. Like, the people, like, in many places in the world, our training environment, our gym would be perceived as very negative, maybe. Because it's all about, all we do is constantly just talk to each other about how bad we are at things. We never really, it's not a gym that goes and tells people how good each other are and how good you are at this or how good it is at this. We're constantly working on what we're bad at, and we're letting each other know what they're not any good at. In a fun way, sometimes in a negative way, but like, that's the kind of place that it is. You're not good at this, so we're going to give you a bit of stick about that. Your double leg, that terrible double leg you did in that fight, we're going to put that in our group and we're going to replay it so that, and that's just how we do things. That's just our culture. And what it means is that when we do big up you, when we do congratulate you, when we do have something positive to say, it has massive, massive meaning to it. And that's just how we do things. It's not how everybody else does things, but everybody in our gym's a piece of shit and they're not good at anything as far as we're concerned. And that's just how we operate.
Obviously well documented that you guys had to deal with a lot during the pandemic because of the restrictions. Those restrictions are no more, right? It's back to normal life?
Normal.
Do you think that it had a positive impact on the team because you guys really had to come together a lot more than some of the teams here in the United States, sleeping together for weeks at the gym, all that stuff? Do you feel like you guys actually grew closer as a result of all of this?
We grew closer as a team for sure because there was a bit of adversity that we had to go through and we had to think outside the box a lot. But the boys' careers definitely suffered over those 2 years.
You think so?
Oh, 100%.
The growth was stunted?
100%.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, 100%. They would have only fought 50% of the time that they would have fought if there was no COVID.
Right.
We were taking fights in the worst possible circumstances that you could possibly get. There was fights where Dan was taking and he could only train in his garage with the people he lived with.
Right.
For some of the best fighters in the world. There was a fight he took against Makachev where we couldn't get any coaches there. He had to stay in America and just put together some random training camp. It's like, and then he had to fly over with some people that have never cornered a fight,
Right.
let alone a UFC fight at that level. Like, I reckon it stunted our development about 50%. So we were working at 50% capacity. So there was no one happier to see the end of that COVID and all the restrictions than City Kickboxing, that's for sure.
What did you make of the criticism Israel received after the Cannonier fight?
See, again, Ariel, like, I don't think you understand. I literally never have a look at all of that. So the criticism, I'm going to guess, that he didn't stop Cannonier, or he didn't...
Well, there was... So I remember at the post-fight press conference, he said he was a little bit unhappy with his performance and whatnot, but then afterwards, it seemed like fans were unhappy with his performance. Now, just for the record, I know you don't watch any of this, and I'm not saying because you're here, but just so you know where I'm coming from, what I said on the show was, I don't think he deserved any criticism just because it may not have been the most exciting fight of all time. I think a lot of that should have fallen on Cannonier's shoulders. He didn't bring the fight to him. It felt like he was just trying to survive and not really go for it. And Izzy, given the fact that he's at the top, like, why should he take a risk when he's the guy who has everything to lose? That said, it felt like afterwards the aftermath was more, let's point a finger at him for not making this into an exciting fight and quote unquote playing it safe. I just want to tell you, this is not how I feel. This is what was the narrative in the weeks after this fight.
Yeah, well, look, nothing to do with that, like nothing to do with other people's expectations, because that matters zero to me and zero to the team, and probably matters a little bit to Israel more than it should, but to the team and myself and the coaches, it doesn't matter. There was some stuff going on there. We did have a plan to mount a little bit more offense, to mount more offense than we did, and Israel knows that, and we tried to press it on Israel during that fight, and we weren't able to come together in the corner with our ideas and his ideas. They weren't able to amalgamate together, and there wasn't able to be more offense. That's what we need to work on. That's what I look at that fight and go, like, we need to figure out the reasons why our ideas weren't able to come together, and you weren't able to press on with more offense. But that's like got nothing to do with what other people think and stuff. Right. And I think he was, at the end of it, disappointed in that he couldn't translate what we were asking him to do and what we had planned to do into the cage that night. That's the only, but we managed to still get what we needed across in terms of enough to win that fight. And when I look back at that fight, I think it was still a masterful fight. What I was surprised of in fight, and I'm not sure if I've gone on record in saying this, is that, I mean, and again, it's easy to sit in my chair and say this, but I thought Cannonier would definitely put himself at risk more. He became very, very conservative. But I've picked up a pattern now, Ariel. I've picked up a pattern. I mean, Vittorio, I thought, would be the one that just puts it all on the line, and when he starts to lose the rounds, he'd come forward and make himself more vulnerable, and Israel would walk him onto a shot. Paulo Costa, I thought, would do that as well. Cannonier, I thought, would do this as well. And it's easy for me to say that, but it's a lot harder to be in the cage and be on the receiving end of Israel's range and be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to start moving forward. It's obviously a lot harder to do than I give people credit for doing.
Do you think Alex will be that guy?
I think he will. I think because of his background and because of his experience, because he's already fought some of the best stand-up fighters in the world, I think he will be less intimidated to come forward because he's seen more strikers at such a high level than those guys have. And I think he will be the guy to press a little bit more. But that comes with a lot of danger, right? That's Israel's special area. When you come forward and get too aggressive, that's when he makes you pay.
What do you remember from that night in 2017, the second fight in particular, the one that's talked about the most because of the finish? I rewatched it last night, and Israel was this close to stopping him in the second round, it seemed like. And then, of course, he gets stopped, and this has been a big selling point. It's all over the videos that the UFC is promoting. For you personally, what do you remember from that?
My personal, I mean, what I feel is what invoked in me is really the feeling of concern I had. Because when you see a fighter drop like that and the head falls back on the canvas, that's concerning. And so, just anxiety. I feel like, man, nothing about the fight. I didn't care about the fight, and I didn't care. Like, well done to Alex and stuff. But my immediate concern, even to this day, is just flashbacks of trying to get to Israel and make sure he's okay, and just wondering if the medical care that we had at that time was up to scratch, because quite often at these fight shows they're not, and just being concerned for his health, because I know what a blow like that can do in the sport sometimes. So yeah, that's the main thing that is kind of invoked in me, that feeling of concern when I think about that fight.
He hasn't been knocked out since, obviously, only one defeat, the Jan fight. I mean, it's been pretty flawless since that fight. And I'm wondering, on that night, would you have predicted, obviously you couldn't predict exactly, but did you think this might change him forever as a person, as a fighter? Were you worried about his long-term health as well because, of the way he fell?
Yes.
Is he? Yeah. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Israel will recall that I kept him from fighting for a very, very, very long time. And because in the fight world sometimes, in the local promotions and stuff, sometimes they say they give you 4 weeks, 30 days, which is ridiculous after a knockout. No one should be fighting straight after 30 days of having a rest. It's just not long enough. I would have given him close to a year, almost a year. And to be honest, I'll admit this now, there would have been times when I lied about getting him a fight. He would have come back after it's been a long time, but 3 months, 6 months, he would have asked for a fight. And I would have just said to him, I said, look, there's no fight available, mate. I can't get you a fight. No one wants to fight you. That would have been a bold-faced lie, but my lies had good intentions. I wanted that man to rest, and I wanted him to didn't have any ill effects from that big knockout. And so I rested him for the good part of most of a year. And I do remember it took some lying for me to do that, but we're here today, so you can forgive me for that lie.
It all worked out. Would you say it's personal, this fight? Is it personal for you?
No, not at all.
Do you think it's personal for him?
For a fighter, you always want to revenge your losses like that. So having been a fighter myself, I'd give me a chance tomorrow. You bring in one of my opponents that beat me right now, and then I'm straight away, my mind's going to go to avenging that loss. But I think there is a little bit of personal stuff there, and the trick is, right, when fights like this get personal, is to kind of separate that from the emotion of the fight and the strategy of the fight and the tactics that are going to go on. You want to completely separate all of that, make sure they're all very distinct, and you've got them in different groups, and you don't get them confused with each other, because that's when things go wrong. But yeah, I think there is. For me, it's just a challenge. Just a challenge. It's the ultimate challenge. The ultimate challenge. You don't often fight a guy who can just take you out, who's capable of taking you out. That's a very rare gift that Alex has. Not every fighter that you come across has that gift. It's very rare. And to fight someone like that is the ultimate challenge, because you have to be on for 25 minutes. You can be off for 2 seconds, like Israel was in the last fight they had, and then the whole landscape of the fight, whether you're winning or losing, doesn't matter, because that to me is like the ultimate challenge, I think.
It's interesting, because if they didn't have that history, he's probably not getting a title shot this soon. And that's what makes this so interesting, right? They have the history, but is he getting pushed too quickly? Do you think this is, Madison Square Garden main event, someone as comfortable as Izzy?
Yeah, let's not state the obvious. Like, there's no way that he gets a title shot if there was no history there. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous that someone would get a title shot. It's the history that he's had with Israel and the story, The UFC, hate it or love it, they know how to promote fights, right? That's one thing they do really well, and they've picked up this history, and they've picked up that this is going to be a great fight, and it's going to bring a lot of eyes, and they've strategically pushed Alex to a place where he can fight for the title. And let's see if we're about to see on Saturday whether it's he's been rushed too early, or he should have been more patient.
How do you think it plays out? Do you have a vision in your mind?
My vision's always the same, to be honest. I think I've got a little bit of a biased vision. I always see Israel doing what he does best and just accumulating damage and just a nice clean fight, stays out of danger and just accumulates damage. Whether he gets a stoppage, I never envisage that. I always envision it going the distance, but I envisage a clean fight. Israel hitting and not getting hit. And, getting back to his friends and family after that and celebrating and all the rest of it.
Last time I spoke to him, he says he has something else that he wants to accomplish. There's something else on the horizon. Do you know what he's talking about?
No, that's a question for him. It's probably something he doesn't want me to know about because I'll probably talk him out of it maybe or something. But no, that's something that's a private thing. Okay. I
wonder if there's another great challenge, another, bridge, something that we don't know about that, we all remember that famous story of the back of the bus after the Costa fight. You said you're going to move up to 205. So no one saw that coming. I wonder if there's something else that we don't know that's coming.
Yeah, I'll stay ready, just ready as you are to get whatever surprise he springs on everybody.
Okay. And your relationship is strong? You feel like you guys are still in like you have been through a lot with Israel over the years. Do you like the relationship that you guys have? Teacher, student?
Yeah, absolutely. We're still as tight as ever. We're still as close as ever. He still, in my opinion and the coach's opinion, has a lot to learn. And we have still a lot to give because there's still, as much as people think that he's a master at this and a master at this, I don't know, us coaches think that he's still very poor at a lot of things. And whether that be striking, and we're talking about striking, but there's still a lot of stuff, groundwork, wrestling. There's still a lot of knowledge to impart and still a lot of room for him to grow. And that's a big part of whether the relationship can be strong in that. As long as we can keep making our fighters better and not stagnate, then that has a lot to do as well with a strong relationship.
You have Israel, you have Dan, you have Brad, you have Carlos on this card. You have a lot of great fighters. I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about Alex Volkanovski. Are they going to try to screw him out of this 55 title shot? I'm getting a little worried here. I feel like they're trying to put the screws on him.
What is the land at the moment?
Well, it seemed like they had an agreement that he was in the cage. He made weight. He went to be backup fighter, and now I'm starting to hear.
Who are they talking about now?
Now I'm just hearing that maybe they want to do Yair, and maybe what are they going to screw this guy? I'm so impressed by Alex.
Yeah.
Pound for pound, number one in most people's eyes. Goes to Abu Dhabi, makes weight, puts his ego aside. You know this. A lot of people aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
Just so he can say, I'm next. And I feel like they're screwing around.
Yeah. Look, I don't get into the politics of it quite often, but you're going to agree with me. Alex has worked his way into a position where he gets to make the call, right? He gets to make the shot. Islam's not the person that makes the call on this fight. Like, Alex makes the call. Alex has multiple time defended as champion, beat Max Holloway 3 times. You name it, Alex has done. So Alex has put himself in a position to be the shot caller. So I don't see how you can take that away. He's just done too much, achieved too much, and put himself in the right position, in my opinion.
And you're in favor of this, right? I know obviously he works with Joe as well, but I'm wondering just your personal opinion, him moving up to 55 to take this risk, if you will, to take on this challenge.
Look, I'm going to be honest. I wasn't in favor of it. I mean, I gave my opinion. I felt there was still some guys that needed to be cleaned out in the division. But like I said, in my opinion, it's just one opinion amongst a team of 3 or 4 coaches, and if the other 3 or 4 coaches, and most importantly, Alex wants to go up and achieve greatness, have an attempt at greatness, have an attempt at something that only very few people have ever done, then I will back him 100%. I wasn't necessarily in agreement. I felt like the 155 could come later, but that was just my opinion. I think Alex has got his heart and mind set on the 155. So, I mean, that's the direction we're all going to head together.
Does it have anything to do with Islam as the guy, or just the challenge of moving up in general and what that could do to one's career?
No, it's got nothing it's got nothing to do with the guy. It's just more got to do with where he's at in his career, and I just thought there was just more guys to clean out. Where I thought Israel, perhaps like there was no clear person that he could have gone to. I felt like that was a better time to go to 205. I think maybe there's some clearer contenders that Alex can maybe have a couple more fights with before he goes to 155. But at the end of the day, that was just my opinion.
Sure.
And it wasn't the predominant opinion of the team. And so I think he's got his heart and mind set on 155, no matter who it was. I mean, that was decided before we even knew it was Islam.
We're going to bring Carlos in a moment, but I'm just curious, the necklace that you're wearing, what is that?
Yeah, this is a greenstone. This is like a native stone in New Zealand.
Wow.
It's worn by the Maori people. It can only be gifted, so you can't buy it for yourself. It has to be gifted by someone. And it just means a whole lot of things. Like
Who gifted it to you?
My partner, actually.
Okay.
She gifted this to me.
Wow.
She bought this to me. So, yeah, it just
Is
has
it
a
for
lot
good
of
luck or?
It's for many different things.
Okay.
Good luck, protection. It shows that you have a lot of, you're held in high esteem by other people. It has a whole lot of different meanings.
Wow. Well, I hold you in high esteem.
I hold you in high esteem.
I have nothing to gift you other than being on this show. It's a real honor that you guys would come in. It's a real honor to have you. By the way, on Monday, you can come back and talk about the great night if you're still around, unless you're going back home.
I'm getting the hell out of here real fast, Ariel. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I wish you guys the best. We're going to bring in Carlos. Thank you for the wisdom. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy day, and good luck, most importantly, on Saturday.
Thank you, sir.